Well, we're going to start with politics and what feels like a developing story this morning. It was a stunning political comeback. Canadians have spoken. They have given the Liberals a fourth consecutive mandate. We're going to bring in CTV's chief political correspondent, Vassy Kapelos, with reaction to last night's results, what is developing this morning. Vassy, first of all, great job last night. When we went off the air from the special at 2, you stayed on and did the National, so I don't even want to know how little sleep you've had. So thank you for coming in this morning.
It's my pleasure.
To give us your analysis. And, I mean, who could go to sleep with everything that seems to be developing? Let's start with Poilievre losing his seat.
Yeah.
What does this mean?
I mean, I wish I had the answer to that question. It certainly last night, did not sound like Pierre Poilievre had any intention of vacating his position at the helm of the Conservative Party.
It sounded like a victory speech.
Yeah, in a way, and certainly, there are certain things that happened last night that go against the outcome in his own riding. Insofar as they were able to up their seat count significantly, they were able to up the popular share of the popular vote significantly. So much so that if this had been any other election, they could have been able to form majority government out of those type of popular support numbers. But, if you can't win your own seat that you've held for 2 decades, like has been a stronghold for Pierre Poilievre for 2 decades, then there will be questions asked of how tenable your position at the helm of that party is. I imagine if he is dead set on staying in that role, there will be a quick process wherein someone else jumps out so that he can run in that riding. But like Parliament is a big part of Pierre Poilievre and in his capacity as opposition leader. All the clips that you see, his most effective performances have been in the House of Commons. Take that away from him, it's a very different leader of the opposition.
And you don't think that this question was asked? You asked your panel last night, and our panel spoke as well about, does he step down? You did not win. You did not win government, and you lost your own seat. The consensus, at least among the Conservatives, seems to be he's earned the right to stay. Yeah,
I think that's fair. I think he has, insofar as he did, the party is more popular than it has been in years and years and years. He did expand the base of support beyond what any of his predecessors have been able to do.
Right.
But I'll say it again, he didn't win. They didn't win an election that 3 months ago they had in the bag. That they were in clear majority territory. It was just a question of how big the majority would be.
Yeah.
And he didn't win his own seat. Again, one that he's held for 20 years. So I think the bigger question is, even if he wants to stay, do the knives come out, as can be the case with the Conservative Party?
Sure.
Are there any challenges to his leadership that start to be built within the party? I think it's far less possible than it was with other leaders. Like, he has a huge command on caucus, for example, but sometimes, there are cracks in the armor, and certainly this morning with that news out of his riding, that is one of them.
We haven't seen reaction from him as of yet. We're waiting to watch for that. Can I ask you about the other story that we're following? So the fact that the Liberals are sitting at 168. They are 4 off from the majority number, and there are still seats in play. Could this turn into a majority government for the Liberals?
I think it could. I was asking that question of a lot of the people on our decision desk last night who, their mathematical system that they have in place seemed to guarantee that it would be a minority just because of sort of what we had assigned to the Liberals already. But because, you never know. That's a very, very close number. And I know, as you point out, there are still some ridings that Elections Canada kind of stopped doing the final count on as of 3 a.m., I think. So we'll wait and see this morning. That would be, a dramatic turn of events as well, right? A very different situation for the Prime Minister, who at this point thinks he's dealing with, having to get dance partners. And if he doesn't, would face a very, very different 4 years ahead.
Listen, this is where you live and breathe. So I want to ask you, there's a lot of talk last night about how the Conservative and the Liberals are going to have to work together, move Canada forward, join forces. That was my face too. Join forces to stand up against Donald Trump. You know what it's like in the House of Commons. Is this possible with these two leaders?
It's a good question, and I don't want to necessarily prejudge the answer. And I say that because if you had asked me this last year, I would have also rolled my eyes and been like, hello, like, have we seen the stuff that goes back and forth? But I do think that nobody, including the leaders of our political parties, would have guessed the kinds of threats that Donald Trump would make toward our country, that he would invoke, challenges to our sovereignty. So if there is a unique moment in our history in which what we think might happen might not, I think it could be this one. And that's not to say there'd be any kind of formal agreement. But I do think, for example, if in fact this seat arrangement holds and Mark Carney decides he wants to build, energy infrastructure out, in those instances, on a case-by-case basis, crisis, I would imagine there would be conservative support for that. If he wants to attack a different program, for example, or build out childcare, I imagine there will be enough dance partners because he doesn't need that many within the NDP or the New Democrats or the Greens, for example. So I don't think it's impossible, and I think if there ever was a time where it's most possible, it would be against the backdrop of this threat we face from Trump.
Well, also, but you mentioned the NDP and big changes coming there. Jagmeet Singh resigning last night, saying they're looking for an interim, as of this morning, they're looking for an interim leader. What does this mean going forward for the NDP and in the government that's to come?
Well, the real story last night was the collapse of the NDP, the utter and total collapse of the third party, third or fourth party in some instances, depending on the year in history in this country. I think I was a bit surprised that Jagmeet Singh made that call as early as he did. I thought he may take a few days to announce his resignation, but I guess the crystal clear nature of not only the party's losses, but his own in his riding coming in, I think it was third place and 5,000 votes, at least the last time we looked, behind the leader in that riding, sort of indicated a different outcome for him. It is because of the NDP's loss in support that the result we have last night is what it is, right? All of it migrated to mostly the Liberals, but also the Conservatives. And as a result, you have two parties with popular support. I believe it was, again, at last count, over 40%. I've never seen that in my lifetime. And all of that is due to the collapse of the NDP. I don't think it's like that forever. We're not really used to that in this country, just two options. But it certainly has changed the dynamic in this election and had massive results for the other two parties.
What are you watching for today, Vassy? That's what I'm curious about.
What the heck Pierre Poilievre says, what the Conservatives say, if anything, and if anything changes in that ultimate seat count, and if we move from a minority to a majority, or the possibility of that exists. I'm very, very, very keenly watching that.
And so one last question to you, Vassy, because this has been like no other. And I remember watching Mark Carney walk to the stage and speech last night going, wow, I can't believe we're done now. After all of this and the turmoil and the what if and then we're watching this, but now I wake up and find out it's still not over.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts? What are you thinking about as we are still in this story, in this most bizarre time in Canadian politics?
I mean, it tracks. It's been a wild 3 months. I don't know. I just, Chrystia Freeland decided to stab Justin Trudeau in the back. Donald Trump decided to take fire on Canada in the most insane ways. Of course, this is the way it is.
It's like the White Lotus of politics.
Yeah, it's not. That's the way to put it, basically. And the ending, I don't know if it'll be as dramatic as this third season of White Lotus, but either way, it just feels like it tracks. So I'm not in any way surprised that things are surprising. That's the time we live in right now. And ultimately, it's the dynamic, chiefly, that Donald Trump imparts on all of this and the impact it had on the election, how that collapsed the NDP vote, how it now led to this battle between the Conservatives and the Liberals, and we await the final results.
All right. Well, you've got about 12 shows to do today, so and you've got to head back to Ottawa to do it. Thanks for stopping here this morning.
It's my
Great
pleasure.
job last night. Can't wait to see what you're watching today. Thank you, Vassy.
Thank you.